Okay, so we're going to start with absolute basics. We're going to go straight in with the Betfair exchange and the Betfair website. We're going to take a quick look at how Betfair works, how they ended up there, the difference between Sportsbook and an exchange, and the pros and cons that come with that before moving on to the actual interface of placing bets and the exchange itself. So to start off with, if we look into the screen, Betfair's changed a lot over the years. Originally, Betfair shot to stardom because they provided a different product to the rest of the market, and they provided something that was far more attractive to the customer, which was the exchange. Since then, it's moved on and they've added a whole load of other products. You've got things like the Sportsbook, the casinos, the exchange games, bingo, all that kind of stuff, which makes them a hell of a lot of money, and that's the reason that they push that so much. In fact, they push that more than the exchange these days, which is a little bit of a shame. That's where they make the most money. But the exchange product is the one that allowed them to go to the top. That's also the one that we're interested from a trading perspective. So there's two different ways that these different models behave, really. So Sportsbook is like a traditional bookmaker. So now Betfair is basically a bookmaker and an exchange. And a sportsbook makes its money from taking the probability of something actually happening and then offering odds that are lower than the chance of it happening. And the sum of those odds over an entire market leaves the bookmaker in a profitable position, and that is why bookmakers actually make more money than exchanges, and you know, these other things are a little bit more attractive. An exchange works: two people log into their account, they place bets against each other at a more even price, which is why you get better pricing on an exchange, and then Betfair charges a commission to the winner of those two people, typically around about 5%. So if we look at the screen, your default page is to land on the Sportsbook. That's no surprise really, and that's because it makes them more money. The one thing to mention with the Sportsbook, they often offer odds in fractional format. It can be changed. If you scroll to the bottom of the Betfair website, you can see here, view odds as, and there's fractional or decimal, and that's on just about every page on the Betfair website, I believe. So we've flicked the odds over there to decimals, and the reason I'm doing that is because it makes it a little bit easier for us to compare the two on the screen now. So the exchange is typically lower margin. If we just delete this tab here, you'll see we've got two races. I've already prepped it. On the left hand side of the screen, we've got the Sportsbook, which is the traditional bookmaking way of doing things. I've set the odds to decimal so it's more comparable. And on the right, we've got the exchange as is. So you've got the extra option there is laying as well, because obviously on you can't do it with a bookmaker, but on an exchange you can lay a selection, meaning that you're betting against it to win. But we'll come on to that kind of stuff later on. So for now, I just want to highlight the fact that the prices are very different, and that's because that margin that I talked about there, the difference in pricing. Bookmaker offers odds a lot lower, whereas the exchange offers odds that are even or as close to as possible, with a tighter overround on the book, which is actually expressed here on the screen. So you can see the sum of the odds are 100.9% at the moment. So the odds are a lot better basically, but the winner pays commission. So that's why you're better off using an exchange for a start in most instances. There are some other pros and cons that come with this. So if we go to the bookmaker side of the screen, there's a couple of problems. They offer those odds, but then if you actually take them, sometimes they may turn around and say to you, you can only have SP, or you can have, we've revised the odds for this bet, and they are actually shorter, which is quite frustrating, because at the end of the day you only make money from placing bets at value. Another thing that they can do if you're winning or beating their odds, if you've seen the YouTube channel, is to restrict the amount of money that you can bet. So, it makes it harder to profit over the longer term, because you may have some kind of system or strategy whereby it makes you money, but then, when you come to certain bets, you're actually restricted as to how much you can place, which is not ideal. And finally, they may just close you down altogether. That's not uncommon either. There's one other thing to mention as well. You may be aware of arbing, and in some instances, bookmakers have been known to say there's a palpable error, as they call it. They're completely within their right legally to do that. They turn around and say, well, basically, we made a mistake and we offered odds that were way out of line of what they should have been, and the bet is cancelled and voided. So that's a problem, particularly if you're backing with a bookmaker and laying it off elsewhere. There's various articles within the news that have spoke about that, and there are different rules regulations with that as well. So if ever that you get caught by that, it's worth checking up with, IBAS or someone like that. So to be quite honest with you, on the bookmaker's side of things, it's an unfair fight. You can only play if longer term you're going to lose. Beyond that, there's a couple of short-term tricks you can pull some money out of a bookmaker, but you're pretty much stuck. That's what they're all about, making money. Whereas the exchange, but this is where Betfair comes to the top, because basically they came along and they said, we'll take this unfair fight situation and we're just going to turn it on its head. You get the better odds because obviously the overruns are better, which is the sum of the odds throughout the book, because effectively you log into an exchange, I log into an exchange, we place bets against each other, and then there's a little bit of commission against the winning bet. So you get better odds. There's no limits as to how much you can stake, excluding how much money is actually in the market. So for example, on screen now, it's very early in the day, you can see that there's only £99 available to back on this second favourite. So if you wanted to bet more, then you'd have to take the next price, which would be 2.44, where there's 138 available. But beyond that, you can place as much as you like, as long as someone else will match your bet on the exchange. Other than that, there's no account restrictions. They don't care if you're winning. Quite frankly, they like winners. There is additional charges for higher rate winners, which we'll come on to at another point, and you won't get palpable errors on the exchange either, because effectively you're just betting against somebody else like me. So you're allowed to win. In addition to this, there are a couple of other great benefits. We've mentioned laying already, so you can bet against things to win, and you can basically trade out a lot easier at a better margin, because I am aware now a lot of the sports books and other bookmakers, such as 365, etc., allow a cash out option, which is technically it's trading out of your position, although they apply that dirty margin on both the opening bet and the closing bet. So it's a quite a bad proposition in terms of trying to trade with a bookmaker on an exchange. That's another benefit of using the exchange, and that's what we're interested in. So basically there's a pot of money there that can be made on the exchange between other people. Obviously for someone to win, someone else has to lose. In the case of the bookmakers, it's basically only customers are allowed to lose, so the bookmaker can win. On the exchange, it's just between people, and then the winners are taxed. So in the next clip, we're going to take a deeper look at how the interface works on Betfair's exchange, and some of the stuff that you've probably seen on the screen there you may or may not be aware of, and we're just going to go through it in depth.